Hey, Chamber members, Alan Waters here, your Director of Marketing and Communications at the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce and your Words of Wisdom podcast. Today, I am joined by
Janelle Anderson.
And Janelle, tell us about company, those pieces, because I know that since the last time we've talked, you've gone through your own kind of transformation with some of those pieces. So let's talk about that a little bit more as we kick things off.
My company is Emerging Life Coaching, and I primarily work with coaches who are building full-time businesses. I help them to host and create and host profitable virtual events like workshops, masterclasses, summits, because those kinds of events can really bring them their clients and consistent income. And it is a hot thing right now. That's a $400 billion industry, virtual events. So I help them build their business based on that. So they bring people to them, and then from there we make sure everything else is in place. And do a lot of that myself, a lot of virtual events and speaking. And I am getting a new certification in the Enneagram, so I'm looking forward to that. I'll be using that with my own clients and hoping to use it as a place, with businesses who want to help their teams get to know each other better and communicate better and that kind of thing. So
from when we first talked now, because this is technically year 3 of podcast, I know that over the years your business has transformed, changed, gone through adjustments. What have been those key factors that have kind of led that shift for you each time it happens?
Yes, it's interesting. It has evolved. And that happens though, I started off focusing on women in their midlife years because that's where I was. I was reinventing myself and starting a new business. And many women, go through the empty nest and the children leave and, they've been maybe working at a job for 30 years and now they're ready for something new. They're in their 50s usually. So that was fun. And my tagline was actually, I help women 40 plus to quit their day job and do what they really want. And that was a lot of fun. Did well with that for a while. And then along the way, I began to realize how important speaking was. I had been doing workshops all along, but not speaking from a stage, just like the presenter. I always had done these workshops where people were interacting with me and I was teaching them something, but this was a different skill set. So I began to learn how to be a good speaker and storyteller, really got into that big time. And as I did that, things started to shift in that I started to, that's when I got involved in the chamber and I started meeting a lot of women, business owners, women entrepreneurs who were out there trying to get themselves visible in front of people and needed to learn how to speak well and present well and also be confident in their own voice. So the focus shifted over to that, and that became a focus for a few years. And then during that time, during COVID, of course, everybody was online, and I was getting more and more online. And then I joined a program where my mentor did these 3-day online events all the time. And I started learning how to do those. I began to be on his event team as a coach. So I started to see behind the scenes how these 3-day online events they're a big production. And that's where, he would sell his high-end program and he would sometimes make 6 figures in a weekend. And I was like, this is cool. So I started doing my own and continued to be on his team. And then he said to me one day after I was still doing the speaking, and he said, you know what? You should teach people how to do virtual events because everybody's doing them and it can bring you income. It can really help you build your business. And a lot of people don't know how to do them correctly. I mean, they can get up there and teach their content, but there's some strategies behind how to make them profitable and all those things. So when he first said that, I was like, I don't know. I hadn't even thought about that. But then the more I thought about it, I realized I've been doing events for years and years, and these virtual events, I've really learned a lot. And so I shifted a little bit. I mean, I still teach speaking and storytelling because you need to do those things. But I decided to kind of rebrand and get niched down into the virtual events visionary. And that's where I've been now for a couple of years.
Okay. And I'm glad you mentioned the COVID piece because, yeah, when we moved there, everything had to. It wasn't even a question of if, it was when. And as we've come out, I think there was a big shift for a lot of people of, oh, we have to go back to live events. It has to be live. We have to do it. And I think that we've started to miss more and more of the virtual piece, and because of the ease of it for an attendee. How has that, like, in terms of the events that you've helped work on, those that you've seen, how do you go about targeting and making those pieces shown? Because I think, like I said, with a lot of our chamber events, a lot of stuff is targeted towards being in person. We do next year have some more virtual options that we're going to be having. But how does that shift when you're looking at your marketing, when you're looking at your talking of, hey, we're online? Yes, you can do it from your computer, but you have to be present, aware, those pieces.
Yes, they're different animals for sure. They both have advantages and disadvantages, but the virtual space, you market differently, you run the event differently, because now you have an audience that can easily just go off camera and sit there and do whatever they want. And many people do. And that's become a thing, actually. When we started during COVID, everybody was on camera because everybody thought they had to be. And it was, and then gradually more and more people are sitting there in events off camera because they are attending so many. I always poll my audiences and ask them, how many virtual events do you attend in a week? And almost always it's 4 to 8 or somewhere in there. Yeah. And these are like coaches, consultants, healers, speakers, people that are doing a lot of online. Their business is like online education, or they have expertise they're sharing with the world, and they have a global audience. And so they're trying to learn a lot at once. And so they're attending all these events, but you can get Zoom fatigue,
Right.
It's a thing. So the challenge is partly getting them to the registration part, but then getting them to actually show up at the event. And then when they're there, being on camera and engaged with you. So there's a lot of strategy behind that, a lot of things that hosts miss. They tend to try to beg and cajole and like, come on camera. And that usually doesn't work anymore. So it's, even in an in-person event, you want to connect with your audience, right? So connection with your audience is crucial either way. But online, it's even trickier because they're not sitting in front of you in the flesh. They're not actually at a conference. There's a joke that we say often, like you wouldn't go to an in-person event with a bag over your head, but when you're off camera, it's like you have a bag over your head. That still doesn't work either. So, and I just did a little talk on this past week about the connection piece of it is the secret to it. People love to be seen, heard, valued, known. That's when I ask people why they go to so many online events or events in general, but especially online events, it's because they want to learn, of course. But the second one, one of the two that everybody always says is connection. They want to connect. They want to connect with the host. They want to connect with each other. And they literally love it when you start to see them and hear them and give them a mic and call them out and say their name and get them. The more that you do that, the more the cameras start coming on without you having to beg for it. So that piece of a virtual event, there's a real skill there. And the biggest mistake I see is that hosts will be so focused on delivering content and sticking on schedule and their PowerPoints and what they are saying and what they have in mind and what they have on tap. And they forget that the people in front of them, well, what they do is essentially they end up making the people in front of them be spectators and not involved at all. And what I like to do is invite my attendees to actually help me shape the event, because the more they get involved and the more they share and the more they ask questions and share their insights and get involved, then the event takes its own kind of, special twist, or, I can plan all the content, but it changes and it becomes very unique based on what people are in the room and what they're saying and what they're
Right.
experiencing. And so I invite them to help shape the event. I invite them to be a part of the event right at the beginning. And so usually I'll have most people on camera by the end of it.
Right. With the in-person versus the online, are you seeing an increase, or are you doing any work that are the hybrid style events that you are incorporating both? And if so, how do you manage that? Because I feel like that's even more so in person to get those people the attention and forget about who's online.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what happens. I haven't done an in-person event myself since before COVID, I think. But I have attended some of them, and I have seen, I think I was part of an event where I was the person making sure the people online were engaged.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that they ran it is they assigned a person to stay engaged with the online people, and they were the host in a way, right? So they greeted them, they'd get on and talk to them, and always go back and remember them and say, hey, we need to ask them some questions. So if you do a hybrid, that would be highly recommended, is to have a person designated to sort of be that host for the online people. It is different. It is harder to manage. I have noticed people getting away from trying to do hybrid. I think people have tried hybrid and found it was just too complicated. So I've heard more and more people that are doing in-person events to say, it's not hybrid. It's just you got to be here in person. And there is something different about an in-person event as far as the connection with people, seeing them not in those boxes, but, being able to hug them and talk to them face-to-face without it being online, and walk around and have lunch and all the things that happen,
Well, like you said, having that, when you're on a stage talking and you look down and you see someone on their computer or in their phone, it's apparent, versus if you're online, especially with a camera, if you've got the camera set up with the same screen you're working from, it's not always the most apparent thing. Right. This in itself is a jump. The word for it is completely losing my head. It is an advancement. And when you come to technology, you come to those pieces that have changed, especially over the past few years. It's funny how Skype was around for so long and they just fumbled it. But now, as we're seeing AI pop up more in these meetings, when you've got the AI assistant who comes in and just recaps the whole thing, are you seeing more challenges there with the captivating part, or is it trying to adjust what your content is going to be for any of that? How is that impacting as you start to plan?
Yes. I don't know that the recapping, the summarizing, the AI companion is impacting much of anything. The thing that does impact is when people bring their note takers, and everybody's got a note taker now. For a live event where you want a lot of interaction and you're giving the recordings only to the VIPs who have paid for it, you have to kick the note takers out. And also, I think that having note takers actually increases the permission people give themselves to not be present.
Right. Yeah.
Because I've got my note taker there, and then they're really not getting as much out of the event if they're relying on their note taker, because it would be the same thing as registering for an in-person event and sending your child in to take notes, or anybody in to take notes. You don't get everything. You don't get the feel. You don't get the sense and the nuance, and you're just reading words. You're not in the room with people engaging and having that back and forth. So even people that rely only on the recordings miss a lot.
Right.
And how often are they actually going to listen to the whole recording? How often are they going to read through all the
notes? It's the same thing. Like an in-person event, if you have a tape recorder there, it's great. But are you going to take the time to listen to that hour-long keynote of just and I think the other part of that is, especially when you get the note-taker piece, the emotional aspect of someone's presentation sometimes goes a lot farther. I was just at a conference this past weekend, and some of the things that got talked about when I was just looking at the slide deck and just looking at those things would not resonate with me versus getting in there. And one of the questions asked was, this was a chamber conference. Does your board know your vision statement? If that had just been written, I wouldn't have thought about it. But just being asked, it made me sit there and go, does our board know the vision statement? If you're on the board, let me know. All right, great. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll dive a little bit further in when we get back. Create your own platform with Emerging Life Coaching. Janelle Anderson and Emerging Life Coaching helps coaches, authors, speakers, and program leaders to create and host simple, profitable virtual events so they can build prosperous, thriving businesses. You have a massive impact to make in the world, and you need your own platform from which to share your powerful message. It all starts with believing in you. Believing in your message, your expertise, your voice, your talent, your knowledge, and your experience. Believing in the fact that what you bring to your clients changes their lives for the better and in massive ways. To learn more about this program and how to create your own platform with Emerging Life Coaching, visit emerginglifecoaching.com. That's emerginglifecoaching.com. Now, back to the episode. All right, we are back. Before we fully dive back in, I want to thank Grand Home Furnishings for providing the chairs, the rug in here that makes this room a little bit more homely and really helps our sound quality. So thank you, Grand, for doing that. So how do you make sure as the presenter and as you're preparing for those kind of things, what are some of those steps you're taking as well to make sure that, like you said, you're trying to work on the captivating, but when you come to the timing, when you come to those pieces, what are some of those things that you have to start thinking about differently online versus in person?
Well, of course, timing and how you present, your presence, the emotional aspect, where you land a point and where you pause, and all of those things are important in person and online. The difference, well, both of them you need to be more, actually, but online, I think it's even more. You have to really be aware of your presence because there is something lost when everybody's separated it by they're on cyberspace. It's 2-dimensional rather than 3 or 4-dimensional. So you do need to really bring more of yourself, more energy. Not still be yourself, but bring more of all of those aspects and really pay attention to where your phrasing ends and what points you're trying to land, and keep your eyes on the camera, which is really hard to do because you're looking down at the people most of the time. We just did a speaking contest, a competition this past week. I was in an event as an attendee, and I joined the competition. I kind of got in late. I almost didn't get in because I missed the deadline. It was full, but then one person had to drop out, so I got in. I actually won.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks. I won a lot of prizes. But it was really interesting to watch. They started off with 16 people, and they gave them a random topic, and you had to talk for 2 minutes. And then the next round, that got narrowed down to 8 people. Then the next round, we could pick the topic, but they showed us 8 random slides. And we had to incorporate the slides into the topic, which was really hard and make sense. And then we could pick a topic for the last one. We gave a 3-minute talk. But as I was watching the other speakers, it was interesting to watch the ones that really didn't have a lot of speaking training probably, or maybe experience, and how they totally missed that piece for the phrasing and the making a point and bringing a message. And then they were just sort of randomly talking. And that you'll lose people so fast if you do that, even in person, but especially online.
Right, yeah.
So you have to really pay attention to that and work on practicing that, practicing the way that you're presenting. Stand up. Even if you're online, standing up changes the energy. And practice looking at the camera. There were 4 contestants at the end, and we got some feedback from a panel. They weren't judging us, but they were just giving us feedback. And all of them said that I was the best at eye contact because the others were all looking down.
Right.
And looking at their notes and reading. And that's also another thing is especially if you're presenting, I will read if I'm teaching, and that kind of thing. But if I'm actually presenting a talk,
right,
sometimes I'll have, bullet points there, but I try really hard to keep my eyes just looking at that camera and not looking down because it's so apparent online, not so much maybe in person. But.
Yeah, but I mean, there are tools for content creators specifically. There are teleprompters that are meant to go around your phone, those pieces that help with that because it does. You lose that connection. And I think looking at my background, I mean, I know that like there were different ways that you would teach a theater actor from a film actor because even though this might be the same exact thing, the emotion that you can read in a scene as a theatrical actor is different than what you're going to have on film because it just comes across differently. You're not able to necessarily directly react from how the audience is there. I immediately think, and I don't know that this is my favorite thing that happens at in-person events, but when someone's like, how's everybody doing this morning? It's a little bit different when you're online, and if someone talks over one another, it's yeah. So, I mean, that's what I think about too. And as a presenter, you have to be a little more confident in that you can't get that immediacy of, okay, I told a joke. I hope they liked it. So as and that's from the presenting standpoint, but from a audience member, someone who's attending one of these, what are some of the things that you can do to maximize what you're going to get out of it other than just being present? But you're talking about the note taker and those pieces. I've heard, we learn more from what we write down than what we type. But I am also someone that when I'm taking notes, I prefer to type because then I can go through and I kind of do mine by a bulleted list. And then I can do those subsets of, all right, here's what was said. Here are my thoughts. So what are some suggestions you might have for those that are attending these events to make sure you're maximizing your time, especially if you're going to 8 a week? You need to make sure that you're getting the most out of those. I'd say 8 hours, but I'm sure it's not just 8 hours.
Yeah, or a 3-day event. It's 8 hours a day for 3 days. So, and I wanted to go back to what you were saying, like in person, you can hear people laugh. That's another thing. Online, they're all muted.
Right.
And you might see some people smiling, but you don't know, you don't know. Some people are sitting there with cameras off, or maybe they've walked away from their camera, or maybe they're taking notes. It's just so different. And you do have to get used to that. I would say I always say this as a attendee on an online event, that come on camera as much as possible. I know sometimes you get tired and it's reasonable to go off for, periods of time when you're eating or you just resting your eyes. But be on camera as much as possible instead of going with the idea like, oh, I can just go and be off camera and be doing other things. Because you won't get probably anything out of it, to be honest. I've tried that before. And if I'm thinking about anything else or doing anything else, I completely miss what was just said. And so what's the point of even being there? The other thing about being on camera, and this is especially good for people that are trying to become more visible and seen and known, even if you're an attendee, you might think, well, it doesn't matter. It does, because you are the ones we notice. The ones on camera are the ones we're talking to. If people are off camera and on Zoom too, you don't even see them. They're later. The on camera people show up first. I don't even know they're there. I don't pay any attention to them. And I'm talking to the people that are on camera, and I'm calling them out, and I'm asking them questions, and they're talking and they're responding, and you get seen and known, and I'll remember them, and other people in the room will remember you. If you are on camera, if you are asking questions, if you're in the chatting away, if you're volunteering to come up on the stage or whatever it might be, sharing a thought, you're the ones that are going to be remembered by the other attendees.
We've talked a little bit about the presenter, a little bit about those that are participating from the producing side of things. What are things that you have to really think about as you're going into these events? If you're thinking, all right, I want to put on an event that some people don't think about. Because myself, again, going back to my experience, I think about when we were in the middle of COVID, a lot of what we were doing was helping theater companies go from putting on live plays to, all right, we need to move for something online, and navigating the issues that were, you have to deal with internet quality. You have to get through some of those pieces, not just on your side, but the side of the attendee. And so some of what we ended up transforming from was, instead of doing a everyone logged in at the same time and was live, some of our stuff was pre-recorded, and so it was there. But I also know for in-person events, for anything in person, I generally plan that it's not going to start until 10 minutes late, because people are always late no matter what you do. And I thought it would be different online, but it wasn't. It would be 7 o'clock and people would still show up at 7:10 to start something, which confused me because I was like, you're at home on the couch. What happened? So what are some of those pieces that, as a producer, as someone looking at a virtual event, you don't necessarily think about until you've been there, done that?
And one of the things you can do to incentivize people to show up online on time is there's some kind of a prize. We do a prize wheel. It's called the Wheel of Names. And they get to win a prize, but you have to be there online, on camera, in order to win. So that does bring people, they are interested in winning. There's also, even online, you can kind of make it a production where it feels like an event. We play music, we have an MC, we have breakout sessions, we have dance parties, those kinds of things. So it feels like an event. It feels like you're not just attending a lecture. You're actually attending an event. It's not even just a webinar. This is an event. It's a production. So you do have to have all those pieces in place. And I think people are a lot more interested in coming when they know there's going to be something fun going on, something spontaneous. You never know what might happen. We always do takeaways from the audience. What did you get out of yesterday? And they get to share. And sometimes those become springboards to some spontaneous content, like, oh, you mentioned this. Let's dive deeper into that. And then you get this extra juicy piece. And so you can miss that easily. Doing contests, having people like that speaking contest. It was a speakers event, and they embedded into it this Speakers Coliseum, which made it super interesting. They also had other speakers, like a typical summit, but in incorporating that contest into it, it just put a whole different spin on it, which people love to come, even if they're not a part of the contest. They liked watching all of us compete and voting for people. And so it's super interesting to see how it was a really great event. So many people are doing events now, and so many people are going to events. You have to think of outside the box. What can I do? What can we do? What can we put into this event that will keep people interested, that will be something different and unique and engaging, so that they will want to come and they will want to show up and be there on time. So incentivizing that is important. Starting on time. Because if people think, oh, well, they're not going to start right away anyway, so I'll just show up later. But if you start right on the button and right when you said you would, there's going to be a core group of people that come to the entire event. They're there for every single session. They're there on time. That's the people that you are really wanting to pour into. That's your core people, and they stay to the very end. And if the others, there's always going to be people coming and going. There's always going to be people on the fringes, no matter what you do.
Right.
But those things really seem to help.
Well, for anyone that is interested in doing a virtual event, anyone that's interested in working with you, where can they find you? All of those fun things.
Yeah, they can find me. I have a new website, virtualeventsvisionary.com.
All right.
And there is a tab on there that says speaking if you want to contact me about speaking at your event or helping you with one of your events. There's contact information on there. I also run a workshop every month called the Virtual Edge Workshop. And I teach my formula for running an event there. And so you walk away with a nice framework and a checklist of things, and we dive into some of the important pieces, like how do you get people there? How do you make your offer? How do you keep people engaged? So I'll go into some of that. And then I do my 3-day event is coming up in November called Virtual Events Bootcamp.
Okay.
And we dive deeper into all the pieces of an event. People start putting together their own ideas for their own event. And we have a lot of fun. And prizes will be won. And,
Well, thank you for being here today. Thank you for talking to me as always. Thank you, members, for listening along. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, all the things so you don't miss an episode or any of the other content that we're putting out through our YouTube channel. In the meantime, make sure you go out, invest, connect, engage, and prosper.